Fight.
Hi, my name is Nicole Nagelli, and today I have Garnet Garcia with me. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi Nicole. My name is Garnet Garcia. I am currently a student in New York City, studying illustration and animation with a focus on storyboarding and character design. And I am also a Nickelodeon Animation intern for the summer on the Casagrandes. So I'm excited to be here.
Woo! All right, here's the icebreaker question. Tell
Let's
us your favorite quote, but in your own words.
Okay, I got this.
All right.
It's funny because it does actually have to do with overcoming fear. The quote basically states that you don't serve the world by hiding who you are. You know, your boldness, your ability to be who you are unapologetically allows others to be themselves because they see you, just doing what you do and being like, yeah, like I am me and I'm not going to apologize for that. And then other people are like, oh shoot, like I can be me too. And that's always been a very inspiring quote for me. Like don't hide who you are because you inspire people just by being you. So I really love that quote.
That's like a really good quote. What role has fear played in your art?
It's definitely, I think I have a big problem of like I'm always subjected to paralysis via analysis. I'll think a lot about like, oh, I should be doing this or oh, I should be doing that. And then I'm like, I also have very perfectionist tendencies from like my youth. So I'm like, if I can't do it perfectly the first time, we're just gonna abandon everything. And it's like that cannot be it. So I think a role that it plays is I think it's a double-edged sword because my fear is definitely there to protect me from getting hurt, but I'm also like, listen, we got to get hurt. You're going to draw something for 6 hours and then you're not going to like the way that it looks in the end, and that's okay. So I think that for me, it's been. I think that it's definitely been something that I'm always having to say like, hey, it's okay. Like, I know this is scary. I know like sometimes it feels like we don't know what we're doing. And especially when you see so many artists around you that have been doing it for a while and you're like, you want to share what y'all have been doing? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Please help me. And then you realize everyone's just trying to figure it out on their own. We're all just figuring it out as we go. So yeah, I think it's definitely been a challenge for me to like I talk myself down a lot if I'm not careful. Like I'll listen to that fear within me if I'm not careful, and I'm gonna be like, okay, listen, you have your time and your place, but this is not the time and the place. We just got to go for it. We got to learn that new skill. We got to try that new position. We got to try this thing, this new program that is really intimidating, but you know what, like it's all going to be better. There's always something better when you take that leap of faith, at least for me. But I think other people can relate to that.
Wow, that's really awesome. Yeah, everybody's like feeling like you don't know what's going on. That reminds me of like high school math class, but nobody knows what's going on. Honestly,
there's one smart kid that knows what's going on, and even that smart kid is just kind of like, oh.
And you just look up the answers on the way home. Okay, anyway, I'm curious. This isn't an interview question, but are you like more introverted or extroverted? You seem very extroverted, but I'm not sure.
I'm definitely more extroverted than anything else. I won't lie. The pandemic has given me a very, very deep appreciation for introverts because I've definitely developed some introverted tendencies. Like I used to hate like canceled plans, like I used to, especially like if they were at the last minute. And now I'm just like, sometimes I just don't have the energy, and someone be like, hey, like, can we reschedule this? Can we like do this another time? And I'm like, I don't mind. I will stay here in my bed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
For the next 3 hours. You do exactly what you need to do, you know? But in my core, I'm an extrovert. I'm 100%
Wow.
an extrovert.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Because I've met people that can like fake it really well. I'm one of the people that can like fake my extroversion pretty well, but it's really cool to like meet, like see other people's perspectives on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does fear affect your work and how do you combat it?
So yeah, similar to what I said before, I think fear affects my work because like mostly out of like that perfectionist tendency that I was talking about. Like I am afraid that it's not going to be, you know, like sometimes when you draw, you have like an image in your head of
Yeah.
what you want it to look like. And you're like, okay, hands, are you going to give me the image in my head?
Hmm.
And like 7 times out of 10, the answer is no. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
for
always
sure.
happen. And sometimes, you know, the fear of what if I can't, what if I can't put the image that's in my head on the paper? Like, why even try? Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to fail. You know, that fear of failure is very real. And you know that can stop me from exploring. And I love to explore, but with exploring comes failure. You know, with exploring comes you know, making mistakes and being like, ooh, that didn't work. Like I tried to do what that person did and it did not work out. So I think that the probably the biggest role that fear plays in my art is the fact that I have that fear of failure. And if I'm not careful, it can talk me out of doing things that are actually like good. Like they're gonna help me.
How
And
did you
so yeah,
start? How did you first start to realize that? Or when did you first start to realize that?
I think when I started to realize it when I decided that I wanted to pursue art professionally. Because before, like I was always like that art kid in
Hmm.
school, you know. Like anytime there was an art project and it's like, oh yeah, you guys have to draw, like the whole class would just turn around and look at me and I'm like, okay, guys. You know, people wanted to be paired with me because they knew I'd do a good job.
Hmm.
But and when I went to high school, I got into two different schools. One of them was an art school and the other one was a science STEM focused school. um at the time I chose the science school, you know. That was partially because I wanted to, and also because, well, you know, like everyone around me was like, ooh, you got into a really like smart fancy school, you should go
Hmm.
there, you know, like you'll get way more opportunities there. And they weren't wrong. But then the funny thing is that, you know, when I finished high school, I was still doing art as a hobby and I still really liked art. And I was like, oh yeah, like maybe I can do this professionally. And they were like, nah, don't do that. Like you're not gonna get money like that. And then so I studied architecture for a year, and I have an immense amount of respect for architects because I spent a year doing that. And for me, it wasn't. It was fine, and I was good at it, but it was not where my passion was, and that's what made me miserable. So again, like I again, another leap of faith,
Hmm.
a big jump. I finished that year and I was like, yeah, see you all next year. I'll come back. And then like in the middle of that summer, I was like, you know what? No, I'm not coming back. I'm gonna study art. We're not
Yeah,
doing
that's
it.
funny. Yeah.
I'm not going back. And it was like a week before the semester starts, you know, like in August, like in
Yeah.
all the schools are
Oh
starting,
my
and I still
gosh.
was not in a school. Like I got into a school, but it was way too expensive. So I had to try to
Hmm.
get into another school at the last minute. And
Oh my God.
I got in, but it was, oh man, that was stressful. That
Yeah.
was very stressful.
That's insane. How did you
It's
figure
very
out like that you wanted to do art like professionally versus a hobby? Because you can still love it the same, but you know, for some people that's like two different things.
I think I think for me it's where I saw vision for myself. You know, like in architecture, people, and again, like passion, I feel like I'm passion really drives my life, and I think the life of so many artists, because it's an industry where it's like you need to have passion. This isn't like, it's not an industry where it's like, oh yes, like my father was an artist and his father
Hmm.
before him, and now I'm going to inherit like blah blah blah. It's like, no, like we're here because we love it. We love doing art, we love cartoons, we love storytelling, fill in the blank. So for me, when I was in architecture, I would see that same passion with my, you know, fellow architecture peers, and I didn't really have that. You know, like their Instagram feeds were filled with design and all these different famous architects or like architecture blogs, and they were like, oh yeah, I want to work in this firm and that firm, and then I want to go here and there, and they had a plan, or at the very least they had an idea of where they wanted to go. And then people would ask me that, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm gonna make a building, I guess. Like, I really don't know what I'm doing. And it's funny because it was one specific night that it was like one of the rare nights where we didn't have an assignment, and everybody was like, what? We get to sleep? Like, oh my gosh, like everyone like ran to their doors, just knocked out. Everyone was like, bye, see you tomorrow. I'm gonna go rest for the first time in 3 months. And I could have slept, like everybody else was doing. And I got distracted because I was like, ooh, I drew something today in class. Let me go on Photoshop. And I didn't know Photoshop at all at that point. But like, let me go on Photoshop and try to like, see if I can do something here with this. And I stayed up all night working on that drawing.
Oh, wow.
I could have gone to bed. I should have gone to bed because I had class the next day, and we most certainly did have an assignment that was going to be due. And I probably didn't sleep the next night either. Mm-hmm. But like that was the first indicator where it's like, you know what, like this is what I think about. This is what consumes my thoughts. This is where my brain goes. This is where I see like where I want to do things, and it has like longevity. So that was like the first instant. And like after the next couple months, it was me just like, yeah, this is it. It's just where I saw vision for myself. I was like, this is something that I want to do over and over and over again. There's that saying of like, oh yeah, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life or something. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I felt. I'm like, it's work. It's annoying. It's really annoying when you're just like, Photoshop crashed again. Like, or like you get writer's block or you get artist block or whatever. We're constantly going to be like, I have carpal tunnel, and like it's infuriating in its own way. But when you love it like that, it's like, but this is the only thing that I see myself doing day in and day out, and that was the difference for me. So,
yeah, for sure. I went through the same thing when I was like in high school. I used to wake up at like 5 a.m. so I could draw for like 2 hours and then not go to bed until 11 at night, which was like horrible. I'm glad I was like a little baby, so like my body can, not a little baby,
waking up at 5 a.m. Like,
I'm like wearing the Boss Baby tie and suit and everything. It's like time to draw some cartoons. But yeah, it's like when you love something, and like I used to spend every day at like school just in the back of the class. You know the strategy, right? The artist strategy to go in the back of the class and like, oh yeah, I'm working. You're not working. You're never working. But yeah, it's like that's just how it is. Like you can't, like, even if you were doing anything else, you can't take your mind off it. That's so cool that you decided to like go for it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I know it's a no.
Oh, go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I just that it took it, and it was like lots of months of like I really got advice about it, because again, like you don't want to be reckless. I wanted to make sure, I checked with my parents, because they, I was like, hey, if I decide to switch majors, I'm gonna have to switch schools. Like, are y'all good with that? Y'all okay? And I'm very grateful, so eternally grateful that I have very supportive parents, and I had to talk to some people like, you switched majors. How'd you know you had to do that? And they would tell me, and a lot of what they said lined up with what I felt. And I was like, all right, well, it seems we're going this way now. And it was scary because, again, like when you hear over and over again, like, you hear about the starving artist, or you grow up with these people, again, like I went to this school that was churning out kids that would go to like Ivy League schools and become doctors and lawyers and, all these like super high professions. And I'm just like, I like anime, and I kind of want to just do that over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. Like my little brother, he wants to be like a rocket scientist, which is very interesting. So it's great.
God bless you.
Yeah, we should all just do what we're passionate about. When you encounter a problem, like in your work, like when you're drawing for 6 hours and it's not turning out how you imagined it to be, usually what's your first thought? What comes into your head?
It depends. I think a lot of that thought process for me actually starts like before I start drawing. like I have to prep myself before I start drawing, in the sense that if I especially in the last couple years, I think I've definitely developed the mentality of like fail faster. Like the sooner you get the bad drawings out of the way, the sooner you can get to the good drawing that you like, you know? The sooner you draw the however so many gesture drawings that kind of look like crap and you're like, oh, I don't want to post this on my Instagram, you know? Like this is, you know, the sooner you're going to get to that one gesture where you're like, oh, that's a line of action. I did that. You know, like, all right. And so for me, like a lot of that process starts beforehand, where I have to like remind myself, like, hey, if this ends up being great, awesome. But if it's not, if it doesn't end up being great, like, you're just like every other artist. That doesn't mean that you suck. You know, not everything can be some kind of Michelangelo type piece. And as long as I remind myself of that at the beginning, you know, I'll end the drawing and maybe it won't be that good. And I'm like, you know what? But I drew. And that wasn't that effort was not wasted. You know, I drew this and now I can say, okay, I don't like that. I don't like that. I probably have to work on that. And that helps me the next time that I draw. So,
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Process. I love the fail faster mentality. I learned that from someone like, and like Jorge Gutierrez, the guy who made like Book of Life. He did something like, he said he made like 10 films when he was at CalArts. He said that there are like 10 bad films inside of you. So you have to just get them out as fast as you can.
Just get them out.
Yeah,
just it's like, out, you know?
Just by, even like how you were saying, even if you just sit and like do something, even if it's terrible and horrible, that's like better than doing nothing, or better than just sitting and thinking about it, for sure.
Exactly. It's way better than doing absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah. Your career is like pretty recent, like your animation career is pretty recent. So I'm like wondering, it's like 6 months or something now?
I am a baby.
You are a baby.
It's an internship, which I mean, not to snub at internships, but the truth is that, like, you know, people are like, oh, you're a professional now. And I'm like, I'm a what? I just got here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the internship has been incredible. This is gonna be, I started in January and it's June now. Wow.
I know,
the
time.
The last like 5 months have been an absolute blur because I was doing the internship and a full-time student at the same time.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh!
Which, listen,
how do you do that? I don't
know.
Is it even possible?
I mean, it is, but like, oh man, it's hard. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It requires an insane amount of discipline, and you know, you got to sacrifice some things. Like I had, you know, I'm very fortunate that you know, a lot of people in my life, like my family and my friends, were aware of the fact that I was doing both at the same time. So, you know, they didn't put pressure on me to like, hey, why haven't you spoken to me in like a week? I'm like, because I'm dying. No, they were always very supportive, always checked in on me, and always, you know, did their best to help me out there. And you know, I'm going to complain about it, but the truth is that it was a very how do I say this? Like, it taught me a lot about myself, and it taught me a lot about, you know, the career that I want to step into. You know, like having a job, especially in the animation industry, is very different from school. It's extremely different from school. And left and right, I was learning these lessons about like how different it was and how I had to conduct myself differently. And I had to like switch gears mentally. Like, for example, you know, like when you're in school, you're the only person who really suffers from not doing things or doing things, or like, you know, you're the only person who benefits from doing your homework, and you're the only person who doesn't benefit from doing your homework. And yes, we have group projects, but we all know that like it's
one
really
kid
like
does all the work,
doing the work, and it was like, all right, cool, buddy, I'll present.
Yeah.
I was always the kid in high school that got out of doing the work because I promised that I would present. I promised that I would present. No one else wanted to present.
Wait a minute, I should have done that. Oh, that's actually smart.
No one wanted to present. So I was like, listen, I'll go up, I'll do the whole presentation. I love talking. I have no fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
And you guys do all the work. And they were like, hey, cool, because no one wanted to get
Oh my god, I wish I knew that before graduating high school. That would have been
extrovert
so.
hack.
Okay, I gotta use
Extrovert
that
hack.
whenever college comes, if it comes. But yeah.
But all of this to say, like, and then but then jumping into a production,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly it's like, oh, everyone suffers if I don't do this. I have to do this on time because it's a butterfly effect down the chain if I'm late, or if I can't do this. And the good thing, but then again, on the flip side, when you're in school, you're the only one who you can rely on, like getting help from other kids or your peers is considered cheating for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on a production, you've got your team to help you. You have the people like, hey, can you help me look this over? And it's like, yeah, what are we doing? Because you're all trying to get to the top. You're all trying to make this show. You all want this to be a success. So you have these people in your corner. Just like 2 examples of like things that I learned, and I'm like, oh, that's very different, but also great. Like I love working in that environment. I love working in that collaborative environment of it's better than being alone.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I never met like other artists until I went to CISA, and I was like, whoa, I don't have to be alone in my room forever? This is weird. Yeah. So what were you scared about, like when you first started like your career, and has that changed like to now?
Oh man. I think very similar to my art. I think my fear was like failure, but okay, let me rephrase that. I think it's more like, I can't say that I had like the biggest fear of failure, because the truth is, like in an internship, like internships are designed for you to make mistakes and then learn from them. That's what an internship is. It's supposed to teach you, and you have the people saying like, okay, no, we're not going to do it like that. We're going to do it like this. This is better. This is how we do it. But there definitely was like a voice in my head that it's like, okay, but what if I mess up like so badly that they just like never hire me ever again?
You just get blacklisted from the industry. Yeah.
From the industry, from the studio.
Yeah.
And I think that I also had a lot of fear, because I was like, I really like it's one thing to jokingly say like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but the truth is, like, you do kind of sort of know some things, like you can say like, I don't know what you're doing with your art, but you know how line works, you know how colors work, you know how shapes work, but in this sometimes I'd go into the internship and I'm like, I genuinely have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And that helps. It helps when you ask questions, but it can, like, I guess, like, to get a little like personal, me, like I'm someone who, really tries to be very self-reliant. I want people to trust me on a team, because that means that they can rely on me. And if they can rely on me, then that means like I'm an asset. I can help, and I think that everyone on the team needs to be reliable, of course. But then in my head, sometimes I equate like not knowing things to like not being reliable, which aren't exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like they're not the opposite. Like you can be reliable and not know something, and that's when you ask questions and that's when you learn. But it's almost like I beat myself up for not just, I don't know, learning through osmosis.
Yeah, I know.
You need to ask, you need to try things. And I'm just like, no, I need to know everything right off the bat. It's like, that's not how this works.
Were people helpful then? Because I know, like, especially when you're first starting out, like, it's really easy, like how you said, like, to feel like really stupid and like really dumb. Like, oh my god. Once you started like asking people, were people like helpful, or were they like, wow, you don't know this? How dare you? Kind of stuff.
No. And people, especially at Nickelodeon, like, people are so helpful and they encourage you. I was very grateful to be working in such an environment where I knew that it was safe to ask those questions. Because like, when you're in an environment where like you're going to ask and then they're going to make you feel stupid for asking, so you'd rather just shut up and not say anything. And that's the worst, because you're like, I swear I'm not stupid. I just don't know what's going on. But I was, I never felt that way in the internship. I had people who were always willing to answer my questions, who were always willing to teach me. And I had a lot of questions, you know, but again, like they knew that I was new, and everybody is new at some point.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
You know, they had to ask questions at one point as well. So, you know, they were super supportive, super generous with their time, their knowledge, their effort. And not just my supervisors, like everybody on the team, no matter what meeting I was in, as long as it was appropriate to ask, I'd be like, hey, what does that term mean? Like, I think it means this, but just clarify. And they're like, oh yeah, it means that. I'm like, okay, cool. Keep talking about audio stuff
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever, you know, whatever's
Mhm.
going on in that meeting. So yeah, no, the people have all been, everyone there has been so helpful and made me feel safe to ask questions, which is such a valuable environment to be in.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What was the hardest thing to adjust to when you were doing the internship?
I think the hardest thing to adjust to was it's definitely like what I said before about, but you know, because in realizing that what I do kind of affects everybody, you know, it forces you to really prioritize. Time management is hard, and you know, very few people are good at it, and even the people who are good at it, you know, slip up sometimes. But it's it's something that you need. It's something that you need when you're working on a team. And I think that, you know, I had my strengths. I think that my strengths lie in communication. So if there was ever an issue, if there was ever something I didn't know, you know, that wasn't a problem. But really having to manage and get down to like, okay, what needs to be done by this day? How many hours is that going to take? Where do I put this? Where do I put that? I have a class here, I have a meeting there, and like having to like Tetris my schedule,
Mhm.
and be honest with myself, because I have a bad habit of like, well, I don't want to say it's a bad habit, but I have a tendency to either like overestimate or underestimate the amount of time that it's going to take for me to do something the first time that I'm doing it. I very rarely ever get it right. And again, that's when it helped to go and ask my to go and ask my supervisors, like, hey, how long does this take you? And she'd be like, oh, it took me about like an hour. And I'm like, oh, okay, an hour. But then I'd go and do it, and it's been an hour, and I'm like, Melissa, I'm not done. I'm like,
Yeah.
Melissa, like, so I think that that was the biggest challenge for me, like having to adjust to, because again, when you're in school, if you choose to do, you know, that assignment tomorrow,
Mhm.
because you have time, it's like your class isn't until Friday. So it's like, yeah, I can do it tomorrow. No one's going to get affected by that. But if that thing is due at the end of the day, it needs to get in at the end of the day. So either you need to do it or you need to find somebody else who can do it. And so that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest adjustment for me. You know, the time management, my prioritization had to be so much more sharp. And I really built that muscle up.
How do you
But it's
learn
only
to do that? Because that's something that I struggle with as well, like with my own films and everything. But the great part is because I'm not working on a team, it's just me. If I choose not to do something, I don't have to do it. But yeah, how do you develop that? Because for me, like what I found is that I have to take whatever I think it'll, however much time it I think it'll take, then just multiply that by three. That'll usually work. But it's so
no,
hard.
yeah, no, I do a similar thing where it's like whenever I think it's gonna take, double it, just in case, you know. Um, and I think, but I think that for me, the thing that helped was two things. One, it was like it sounds like it's scary and it's scary to say and it's scary to hear, but trial and error
Ooh,
sometimes
okay.
is the only way. Like sometimes you really just have to try something, try a schedule, and then you have to be like, you know what, that didn't work as well as I planned. I need to go and revisit that and see what worked and see what didn't. Then revise it, go back and then try it again in your revised way. And if that works better, you figured out how to do it better.
Okay, that
Um
makes sense.
and and again, like there really is no way around that, because again, like, and especially for me, I'm bad at knowing what it's going to take. Again, I'm not going to use the word bad. I'm not going to beat myself up. Like you can't know what you don't know. Like you've
Yeah.
never experienced it. How are you supposed to know? So you can't beat yourself up saying like, I should know this. It's like, how? You've never done it before. You've never been through it before. So going through it and being honest and analyzing and being honest with yourself, you know. Like you got to be honest with yourself when you're overwhelming yourself, or when you're like, okay, listen, the only reason why this took so long is because you spent at least 30 minutes scrolling on Instagram. Like this shouldn't have taken as long as it did. And I think the other part of it is getting advice, getting advice from people. I'm telling you, like, I'm so glad that I had people on my team that I could ask, like, how do you do this? Like, what's your process? And then it would help give me some insight as to how I could do it faster or I could be more efficient. Again, like asking them, like, does this take like an hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 3 hours, like a couple days? How long is this supposed to take? And that gives me an estimate of where I should be or where I should aim to be. And again, just getting help. This is a wonderful industry full of artists that are always willing to help, whether it's with like skill or advice or effort, like whatever. So it's always better to learn with people around you as opposed to like in a vacuum.
Yeah, it surprises me. Like people are like so much more nicer than you expect them most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time. What's the lesson that's taking you the longest to learn?
Ooh. Oh, sorry, I have to laugh.
That's all right.
I'm still learning it. Like I said, like I'm growing out of where I'm slowly trying to break free of perfectionist tendencies. I remember this is a little insight to like me and who I am as a person, but I remember sitting in a class with like that was one of the classes that was made specifically for the Nickelodeon interns, and we were all there. We were there with the head of social media, and she was giving us tips on how to do things on Instagram and Twitter and like post and whatnot. And something that she said was like, hey, listen, don't get discouraged if every post doesn't do as well as you think it should. Like we can't all like you can't every assignment that you do in school like can't be an A. And I did not process the next thing she said, because the first thing I thought was like, why not? Why can't every assignment be an A? I was like, what? Like that doesn't compute. Like, and that's just like it's the way that I was raised, unfortunately. Like I don't know, like immigrant parents, they want the best for us, but sometimes it's like gotta be? Why?
Yeah,
because you on our phone all the time, It's like it's not.
Yeah. It definitely helps the work ethic, but maybe not everything else.
Oh yeah, no, the work ethic, and especially I have a lot of pride in being the child of immigrant parents, and I have so much respect for any first generation, second generation. We rock. But sometimes we grow with these expectations that can be crushing, and honestly don't always need to exist. Like, again, great for work ethic, great for having standards of yourself. But, I, again, like recognizing that every drawing that I do isn't going to be perfect. Every sketch that comes out isn't going to be like exactly the way I want it to be. Every post on Instagram isn't going to be my most successful. Every day that I go into work, I'm not going to be feeling my best. Like, I'm going to want to do my best. But if I have an off day, I have an off day. And that doesn't say anything about like my character. It's not like oh, you're just incompetent or you're lazy or so and so fill in the blank. And that is 100% like the hardest lesson that I'm still breaking out of. And I like to believe that I'm a lot better with it now, but I also got a long way to go.
That's all right. Life is a lot longer than we expect it to be, thankfully. But yeah, when's the last time that you created without fear, and how did that affect your work?
Oh, I love it. I love it when I can do that. And honestly, for me, I think the last time I created without fear, it's something that I haven't posted, but it was something that I posted on my story, and everybody was like, "Wow, that's beautiful," and all that stuff, and it was really successful. But it was something that I just tried, and I didn't have any.
Did I see it? I don't know if I remember.
I think you did. I think you might. It was
okay, probably.
It was a drawing of it was a dark skinned girl who had like really curly hair, and there was like golden flecks like.
I think I remember that.
It was like a while ago. It
Did
was a couple
somebody
months
do a
ago.
voicerver for her or something like that?
No, no, no.
That
That was
was
a
a
different
different one.
character.
Okay,
That
okay.
was a
Wait,
different character.
whenever it comes out, I'll promote it. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you know, like I don't even remember what I was doing that day. Like I don't remember why I took out my tablet. I was just like, I think, you know, it was a sketch
Mm.
and I just drew the sketch. You know, I didn't have an idea. I was just like, yeah, I'm bored. Let me start sketching. But then I ended up really liking the sketch. And so I was
Nice.
like, you know what? Let me try this. Let me go and I'm gonna try a new style of line. I'm gonna do things differently. And it was one of those moments where it's like I was not thinking about the end result. You know, I was not thinking about, oh, this is gonna look great, and I'm gonna get like 10,000 Instagram followers from this one post.
Yeah.
Like it's just I was just there in the moment with my art, and again I think I said it vaguely in the beginning where it's like the thing that I feel often casts out my fear is my passion. You know, the more passion is within me, the less I think about what I'm afraid
How do
of.
you cultivate that? Because I think everyone is like, you have the passion, but how do you like grow it? How do you like, does anything do
How do
it
I
for you?
I mean, in a way, it's like, man, I don't know, like when my brain decides to function like that. When I get the serotonin. But
Yeah, yeah.
I do think that there are definitely things that an artist can do to help, keep that like fire in them alive. I think it's going to be different for every person, but I know that for me, I'm someone who, I, how do I keep the passion alive in my art? I keep the passion alive in my life. I keep doing the things in my life that I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about sports. You know, I love being active. I love, I was an athlete for most of my life, and whenever I'm doing that kind of stuff, whenever I'm physically active, whether it's like playing soccer or rock climbing or ice skating or whatever, like I feel like energy and I feel alive, and that's key. That's so key when you're doing art. You need to go out and find what inspires you. If it's reading a book, read a book. Just go. Like, you don't just
Yeah.
enjoy the book for that thing where you're reading a book and you zone in so hard that suddenly it's like 6 hours later and you're like, where am I? Because you're just like so engrossed. If it's going out and walking in nature for a few hours and just being quiet but enjoying like the green, and then that's what makes you feel alive. If it's being with your friends, if it's being with your family, with your dog, with your cat, you gotta surround yourself in that energy and that passion, because it can't all come from your art. Like, that's the truth. Burnout exists. There is no artist that does not experience burnout, period. If you're an artist and you don't experience burnout, you're either like really weird, or you're holding a secret that I would really like if you told everybody else, because that's not nice. That's not nice, my dude. And so you need to take a break from your art sometimes and go fill up that passion inside you with the other things, and then that
Yeah,
passion
for
is going to
sure.
get channeled into your art, along with the passion that you already have for your art. you know
Is there a project or something that you're putting off because of fear?
Yes, question mark. Yes, question mark, because like in my head, I think that a lot of the projects that I have are being put off more so because of like time that I don't feel that I have. Or rather, again, like having another lesson that I'm learning slowly is like, to take care of my mental health is important. And I have a very that's a bad habit. I'll admit this
Mhm.
one is a bad habit. Of biting off more than I can chew. That's something that I've struggled with since high school. I remember my guidance counselor saying it, like, dude, this is a lot. And I'm like, yeah, no, I could do it. And then I came to his office like crying 2 weeks later because it was way too much for me to handle. And so there are things that I've had to put off for the sake of my mental health. But there has definitely been times in the past where I've been afraid to start projects, to tell stories, because of skills that I recognize that I might not have. Like, I'm good with characters. I think I'm good with creating characters, but something that is not a strength of mine, and I'll be the first to admit it, is like world building. it's not something that comes very naturally to me. It's not something that I daydream about. There are people who are incredible world builders, and I'm like, how do you do this? How do you just create these places out of thin air, and it's magical and it's wonderful and it's incredible, and I just can't do it. And then because of that, like, because I start thinking about all the things that I can't do, I stop myself. Again, going back to that perfectionist thing where it's like, it's not going to come out the way that I want, so we're just not going to try at all. And it's like, you can't do that. So, you know, that's definitely been how fear has stopped me from chasing projects in the past and just diving into it. And the way that I've, you know, started to like combat that is thinking about what I am good at and then building upon those strengths. You know, like if I'm better at characters than plot and world building, then write a story that focuses on character growth, and then you can fill in the other stuff later. Figure it out as you go. Or just telling myself like, hey, if you're not that good at it, you can learn about it. You don't have to be good at it right off the bat. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And then I got to fight that part of my brain that's like, what? No, like, how dare you not know it right off the bat? It's like, please just pick up a book on screenplay. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know you want to be like a showrunner, like eventually. I'm curious, who inspired you to do that? Are you like currently working on an idea?
I think that with showrunning, something that I've learned is that if you're going to pitch something, sometimes it's all about the time and the place. You might have an amazing idea, but you know, with whatever studio or whatever's out on the air right now, it's just like they can't pick it up or something like that. Or, you know, sometimes you come in with a main idea and, you know, it doesn't work for whatever reason. They're like, we can't show this right now. It's not really what we're looking for. And they're like, do you got anything else? And you're like, oh, well, here's this kind of like thing that I've sort of been developing that maybe I'll do later. And they're like, oh, wait, I like that. You know? So I think I've had like multiple things in my back pocket, but the thing that inspires me and the reason why I feel like I have multiple ideas is because the thing that truly inspires me to want to be a showrunner is just like, there are so many stories that have yet to be told. You know, I am a big, big advocate for representation, more representation, women, people of color, you know, having, you know, the stories of so many that like historically just, we're not really there. You know, we don't make up a majority of the protagonist or the main character or even like the speaking roles in some cases.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, oh my dang, like we didn't even get a line. You're kidding? And like, or even like this is something that I learned about in high school, and when was it, high school or was the beginning of college? And it like made me mad, but it's also like those like that vindictive kind of inspiration where it's like, I see you guys failing at this. This is horrible. So I'm gonna do it right. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Where it's like oh god, I forget the name of it, but it's something called like the Bendel test or the Bench.
The Beck. I've only ever read it, so I don't even know how to pronounce it. But it's like BECH something.
Yeah. And it's the thing about like, oh, here's how to know if a film passes the test, and it's like 3 rules.
Yeah,
it's like there has to be like more than one woman. Already the bar is underground. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like the bar is underground. There has to be more than one woman, and they both have to talk to each other. That's the second rule. And then the third rule is that they have to talk about something that's other than a man.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's it? That's the criteria? Like, and I remember it made me so angry because I'm like, that's nothing. Like, again, like the bar is in hell at this point. Like,
I know, right?
You guys are kidding me. And so in seeing like the percentage of, you know, writers or, you know, because again, that representation is not just on the screen but also behind the screen.
That's the thing that people don't understand, or like people like not in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's like, listen, you don't just want that representation on the screen. Like, it's like the person, like the Black character should be played by a Black person, you know. And again, that there's a whole lot of conversation that happens in that. But I'm like, listen, if someone is putting out a story about being like Indian American, listen, the person who's going to write that the most authentically is probably going to be an Indian American. Or even if like the main person, like let's just say like the director isn't, like, which I mean, whatever, sometimes it happens. I'm like, I better see a whole lot of Indian Americans in that writing table or in that storyboarding, you know, squad or whatever. Like that representation just needs to be there. And so, you know, that's a big inspiration for me. I want to see more of that. And I think that that's a very, you know, it's something that's like can be considered kind of vague. Like I don't have a specific story that I want to tell.
That's okay.
But
that's
then because of that, I'm like, that means there's just so many stories that I can tell. Like there's so many different versions of that story. There's so many different things to be a part of. And I'm just like, yeah, just gonna keep churning that out one way or another.
That is so lovely. Oh my gosh, it makes my heart so happy because I've been doing these interviews and pretty much almost everyone that I've talked to so far, that's like their goal, which makes me very happy. I hope in the future, in the next 5 years, we can see a whole lot more of that, of just people.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What's something that you failed at and what happened afterwards?
Ooh, something that I failed at. I failed to take care of myself. I have ended up in, again, like just I guess I'm gonna get a little personal here.
Yeah, we can cut it out if you decide later that you don't want to.
No, but I think it's good to talk about. I think that mental health needs to be talked about more. You know, I'm also a big advocate of like breaking down the stigma of you know what it means to have a mental illness or what it means to be like more neurodivergent. You know, having executive function disorders and whatnot. And I think that if more people talked about it, if more people were open to talking about it, you know, we wouldn't have so many like not like all the problems would disappear, but I think it would be a lot easier for people to manage it and not be so alone in their struggle. And so for me, you know, I have a history of suffering with depression as well. I also have ADD and amongst other things. And you know, when you have a lot of things working in your brain, you know, like I was joking with my friend about like, you know, having ADD or ADHD. It's like I just feel like my brain is full of bees all the time. Like it's very difficult to work sometimes. And anybody who's like seriously dealt with depression also knows that is a whole challenge and a half. You know, sometimes waking up is a struggle. It's something as simple as that. It becomes difficult to take care of yourself. Becomes difficult to even have the passion to do the things that like in your head you're like, I like this. I know that I like this, and it's so difficult. And what I failed to do is I failed to take care of myself, and I ended up not being able to do a lot of what I love for like a good 2 months. Now I ended up in pretty intensive care, and then like I didn't like it wasn't like a matter of like you know, I'm not saying that I you know had a like a serious like lethal experience or anything, but you don't have to be dying for it to be a struggle, you know. Like you don't have to end up in like on the verge of death for it to be a real struggle for you to even function in the world. So that's, you know, a big reason why I, you know, just for myself, I've been such a big advocate of taking care of myself and, you know, advocating for other people, like take care of yourselves, learn about yourselves, about the way that you function, about the way that you work, and then, you know, recognize that one size doesn't fit all. We're all really different. Someone who struggles with depression can't go about their life the same way that someone struggles with anxiety. Someone who struggles with anxiety can't do the things that someone who obviously like who doesn't struggle with anxiety at all. Like it's that you can't do the same things that they're doing, and that doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you incorrect. It just means you got to find a different way, and that's good, and that's fine. We should be doing that. So you know, I think that was that's probably the thing where I'm just like, yeah, I failed pretty big on that, and the consequences were, thank God, not permanent, but they were long enough that I was like, okay, I can't do this again. You know, I can't end up here again because I don't want to end up here again. So, yeah.
What is one of the tips that or the workarounds that you found to be the most helpful with those issues? Or what do you wish that you just, if you could give like one piece of advice to be like, oh, don't do this again. This will help
Don't do
instead.
that.
Like, what would you say?
Be honest with yourself. Be honest when something is too much. Again, like I have a really bad habit. I had slash have a very bad habit of biting off more than I can chew. And if I'm lying to myself, saying like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm totally okay. Are you? Are you really? Like, when was the last time you went outside? When was the last time you like did self-care, like actual self-care, like by yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Truly, when was the last time you did this? Like, are you really doing the things that you're passionate about? Like, have you noticed that you have been sitting in front of this computer for 10 hours without getting up?
Oh,
That's not
geez.
good.
That's not,
That's
yeah,
not good.
that's really
You
not
know?
good.
And you can forget about that. Or you can say like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, no, but it's fine. I only did it for one day. But then that affects you the next day.
Yeah, for
And then
sure.
that affects the next day, and that affects the next day, and that affects the next day. And for me, I think, if anybody out there is like me and has a tendency to, you know, to do that, where you're biting off more than you can chew, and you can overwhelm yourself, whether because, again, having a great work ethic, having standards for yourself is excellent. And I think having a hustler's mentality has its time and its place. But if you don't pick a day for your body to rest, like, your body is going to choose it for you. If you
Yeah.
don't
Oh my
take the
gosh. Yeah.
time, if you don't take the time and say, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to, give my body what it needs, give my mind what it needs. If you don't do that, your body and your mind will make that executive decision. It'd be like, hey, I'm crashing now
Mm-hmm.
because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we tend to separate like the mind and body so much, especially in like this culture, but it's really
Oh
not
yeah.
like it's in there. So,
It's all in there.
yeah.
It's all in there. And you feel it in your body. Like, you
Yeah.
you feel it when you're overwhelmed. You feel it when you're anxious. You feel it when you're tired, and we can't pretend that like our body is doing one thing and our body is like, yeah, no, you go do your thing. I need to
Mm-hmm.
do this. Like, no, we're attached. When your
Yeah,
body
no,
doesn't
it's
feel
totally
good,
true.
you're not gonna feel good.
Yeah, like I do acting and stuff, and I never like when I first started acting, I did not know that the mind and body were like so connected. Like for example, when I get nervous, my throat literally like closes up and I can't speak.
Exactly.
But then in audition rooms, you can't have that happen. So it's just what a lesson to learn, right? That we're connected.
We have to be so
Um,
much more aware of our bodies.
yeah, for sure. Did you have anyone who encouraged you or helped you overcome fear?
Uh yes. Um, I think that, my friends, I think, especially one of my best friends, they really encouraged me by not only saying that like your fear is normal, because we can often fear like we feel like the fear that we feel like maybe like no one else is going to understand it, or like maybe we're wrong to feel the fear that we feel and feel mixing up my words. But having another person come in and say like, hey, it's okay, you're okay, it is okay to be afraid, it makes sense that you're afraid, at the very least helps eliminate the idea, like, or the thought in your head that's like, maybe I'm insane. And that helps. But also having friends that are able to kind of like logically talk myself out of my fear, like being able to say, like, okay, you're afraid of this, but how likely is it that that's going to happen? Or like, let's just say that does happen. Is it really the end of the world? And me having to be like, well, no, not really. Like, well, maybe not. Or them encouraging me, saying like, listen, you doubt yourself in doing this, but you have a lot of skill. Like, don't talk yourself down. Like, you've done this, you've done X, Y, and Z. If you can do all that, you can do this. Because it's the same thing. It's the
Mhm.
same skills, it's the same mentality, just applied somewhere else. And that helps me a lot. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an extrovert. I can't work in a vacuum. I can't,
Mhm.
when I start to think in a vacuum, that gets very messy.
Yeah.
I love to hear other people's thoughts, other people's, opinions, other people's advice, especially of the people who I care about, who care about me and who know me well, because they're able to, sometimes they're able to get my mind and my body in the same place.
Yeah, yeah. What is the thing that helped you get out of your comfort zone?
I'm not gonna lie, like I think I'm just a very like I'm a very like bold person in general. Like I've always been like very like competitive kid that's always like, oh, let me try that. Maybe
Mhm.
what I shouldn't have. Um, I think the fact that I've always been kind of like gutsy. I'm always trying to chase that thing that's like new or challenging. Especially again, that's just like that competitive side of me, especially when I see that other people are doing it. Like, well, okay, no, that made me sound like that makes you sound like I'm only doing it because other people are doing it. No, but like when other people, when other people challenge themselves, it inspires you.
Yeah, yeah, for
When other
sure.
people are trying new things, you're like, oh, they did it. Oh, let me try that. I'm a person who's very much like that. I like to set the stage. I like to set the bar. But then when other people set the bar, I'm also like, okay, I see you, and I'll try to
Mhm.
go for that as well. So I think a part of it is the fact that I love new things. I love new experiences. I like to experiment with my art. I do. I just have to talk myself out of the perfectionist part of me. But also something that definitely helps me come out of my comfort zone is when I see other people living with that passion, when I see other artists pushing themselves into that territory where like I knew they were afraid. I got this one friend who they love drawing animals. They don't really like drawing people. They don't think that they're the best at it. And they're like, I don't like it. But whenever I see them try, whenever I see them like, okay, I did some anatomy practice today. I can't say it's the best, but I tried. I'm like, I want to try. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so inspiring. Like you did it. Like you went after that thing that makes you uncomfortable, that makes you afraid, and I love that for you. And you know
Mhm.
what? That inspires me to do the same thing. Like you didn't die, I won't die either. We're all in this together.
That's so
So
lovely. What would you say is like the most fearless thing you've ever done? And it doesn't have to be art related.
the most fearless thing I've ever done. Um, that's a great question, actually. That's a good question. I might have to think about that.
Yeah, it's all right. We
Um,
can like cut out the thinking part and I'll drink my water.
yeah, let's both drink one water
Yeah.
break. Um, I think the most fearless thing I've ever done, and I don't think I've done it only once. I think it's something that you always.
I
I
like
think it's something.
it's so
Sorry, my keeps
cute.
moving forward. It keeps moving forward. I'm like, stay back. Stay back here.
Mhm.
I think this is. It's not something that I think I've only done once, but it's something that you always have to keep doing. But I think one of the bravest things that someone can do is, you know, be their real self, be their most authentic self, and not be afraid to show that. I think that, we can be so afraid of judgment, and rightfully so. No one wants to feel judged. No one wants to be excluded from the group. No one wants to be seen as someone, you don't want to be viewed as like, oh, that person, but you also have to, sit there and recognize that you're not going to please everyone. And you can be, I saw this quote recently and I was like, oh, there it is. Where it's like, you can be
Yeah.
the juiciest, nicest, sweetest peach in the world. And you're still going to find someone who doesn't like peaches.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that one too. It's so
It's like,
true.
it's so true. It's like you
Hmm.
can be the best of whatever it is that you do, and you're always gonna find someone that just doesn't. But the vibes are incompatible, bro. And it is what it is. So I think that for me, a lot of the times where I feel like I really need to channel that bravery, because again, bravery is not the absence of fear, but rather what we do in that fear, has been when I've decided, like, listen, I'm not going to hide who I am, what I like to do, I'm not going to hide my passion. I'm not going to hide the things that I care about. I'm not going to hide my personality. And again, that's not to say that like I am going to say whatever I want. I don't care how you guys feel. Like, I don't care about your feelings or anything like that. Like, whatever. I don't care about any of you. But there definitely are parts of ourselves that we hide that don't need to be hidden. Like, oh man, whenever I experienced it, and I know other people have experienced it, and so now, like, whenever I think about it, I'm like, yo, that sucked. Like, that's like, whenever you talked about something that you were seriously passionate about, and you just went off, and someone was like, hey, can you stop? Like, I don't like, it's kind of annoying. Like, and it's like soul crushing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's soul crushing when you do that, because you're like, I put my heart into that. Like, or like when you're just being yourself, and again, I'm speaking more to like the things that I know that is my personality as opposed to someone else's, where it's like, I love to talk, and I love to have energy in everything I do, and I'm that kind of friend where it's like, where someone will hit me up and it's like, hey, it's like 2 a.m. You want to go to McDonald's? Like, I know, like, just to go, and I'm just like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't eat McDonald's, but I'll go. Like, I'm down. Or someone's like, yeah, I have to go to Target. Want to come with me? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And when you're eventually going to find the people who vibe with you, you're eventually going to, for all my introverts out there, you're eventually going to find those people who, when you're super quiet and you're not talking in a room, they're not going to be like, why aren't you talking?
Oh my God, I hated it when people did that. Yeah, for sure.
Why aren't you talking? Like, why are you so quiet? Like, are you mad? Like, you're eventually going to find the people that just kind of like let you be and do what you do. If you're the kind of person like me that you love to just talk for 20 miles an hour, like 5 hours about that special interest that you really, really love, you're going to find those people that aren't going to tell you to shut up.
Oh yeah.
And stop because you're being annoying, and when you do find those people, you aren't going to have to hide. And that is one of the loveliest things that I think anyone can ever experience, being their authentic self and then finding people who are okay with that. Yeah,
that's so lovely. That's like so comforting to hear, especially as like you're growing up as a little teenager.
Yeah. And that's when I started, like when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it was definitely like after I got out of high school when I started college, and suddenly I was like, I don't want to hide who I am, and not everyone has to like me. What a thought, like
yeah, for sure.
You learn it as you grow up more than anything else. But I'm glad that was encouraging to you, and hopefully it's encouraging to others as well.
What's a common myth that students have about working or being in the animation industry in general in the time that you've been here? Or did you debunk any myths yourself?
I think a common myth. I don't know if this is so much a myth, so much as it is that I don't think it's something that everybody knows. But like, there are more jobs in the industry than just storyboarder, character designer, biz dev artist, and animator, or like, more well-known production roles like director or whatever. Like, there's way more stuff that goes into it. And I think that for me, like when I started my internship and I started to work on the production, and I started to hear about all the different types of roles, and I'm like, oh, that's important. Like, how did I not realize that that's a job? Like, that someone has to do that. And the thing for me is that like I wish more people knew about it, because then I think that people wouldn't say like, oh, I'm not an artist, so I can't work in animation, and it's like, listen, we need more executives who are like, women, people of color, like LGBTQ, like those production thing, like network people in the network that like, it's just they do business related stuff. Like, that is a part of the process. It's so many different things. It's not just the artists. I forgot about writers. That's the other one I was thinking about. Oh my, writers. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the writers' room, there's many different roles.
Yeah.
And so for me, again, like I don't know if that's so much a myth, so much as it is that you know, I wish more people knew about it because they really don't teach us this at school. You
No,
know,
no, no, they don't.
they don't teach us about all those different roles. Like I didn't know what a line producer was
What is a
before
line
getting
producer?
like it's literally like everyone's boss. Like they're the
Oh,
person
wow.
who coordinates. They coordinate the schedule. They make sure everything's running on time. They make sure everybody gets paid.
Well,
Like
that's important.
it's pretty important.
Yeah.
Like if
Wow.
like they were when I was there, like they were my supervisor's supervisor. Like if anything had to be like if I needed like an Adobe subscription, they're like, oh yeah, you need to talk to Nick, you know. He you know, the line producer also coordinates with you know, if you're outsourcing animation, which in this case we were, like they're working very closely with not only the creators of the show, but also like their directors and making sure everything is like running smoothly and whatnot. It's a very important job.
Yeah, wow.
And it's not something that I knew about until I got to the internship.
I literally did not know that until now. That's so interesting.
Like, why aren't they teaching us this?
Yeah, I know. Wow, that is really, really cool. What do you wish? Oh, wait, this is the same kind of question, but what do you wish you were taught about the industry before going into it?
Um, Actually, this is okay. I feel like I'm answering these questions in reverse. Here's a myth.
All right, that's all right. It's fine.
Here we go. Here's a myth. But again, it's like one of those things I didn't really realize until. But your art is important. Obviously, you are doing art for a living. It is your job. You will go in there. I mean, that is if you're doing an artist role, like again, storyboarder, character design, biz dev, and who you like. The art that you produce is extremely important. Let's just say like it's about here. But that is not the only way that's not the only thing that's going to get you into the industry. Your art is not the only thing that will get you noticed. Your art is not like if you know you're not the only surefire way is not always through your portfolio or through your Instagram. Yes, there are people who, you know, you look at their portfolio and like, man, look, we need to have this person, like they're amazing. Or you go on their Instagram and there are definitely people who get hired into the industry via their Instagram and the art that they post. But if your art is here, I'd say like who you are as a person is like here in terms of importance. I full disclosure, I didn't really get like the internship that they didn't really look at my portfolio first, you know, like I was reached out to by a recruiter because I happened to participate in last year Nickelodeon had a virtual job fair in the summer, like around like July and August.
Mhm.
And I went there, I literally just went there to learn. You know, I spent the summer really trying to delve into the knowledge of the industry as much as I could, you know, connecting with other students, joining groups and attending panels, you know, like Rise Up Animation. I attended a ton of those panels last summer because I realized like, wow, there's a lot that I don't know, you know. I mean, even people who go to art school, they're like, yeah, we don't know everything. And then I go to a community college on the other side of the coast. It's like, yeah, I know even less.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went to this job fair with the intention to learn as much as I could. And it was because I was active. I was asking questions every chance that I could. Every time they had this feature where you could like raise your hand and they would unmute you and you could like ask the people speaking. Every single time I could, I raised my hand. I asked questions. I was active in that chat. And it was my initiative and my energy, my passion that like quote unquote shone through and got the recruiter's attention. Yes, obviously they looked at my Instagram and like saw my art, but like that's not, you are in an industry full of people, you know.
Mhm.
This is a people industry. Who you are as a person a lot of times matters a lot more than the art that you can do, because you're working with these people for like 40 hours a week. You don't want those 40 hours to be miserable. you're going to be communicating with these people all the time. You want it to be a good time. And again, we're making cartoons. It should be a good time. We're making kids laugh, or, helping kids dream. Like, it should be fun. So if you kind of suck and you drain the life out of the people that you work with, or you have an ego, oh, Lord forbid you have an ego. Like, you don't want to have an ego. You want to be humble as much as you can. You want to recognize that the people around you are also people. Who you are as a person matters so much. And it can be the difference between not only you breaking in and not breaking in, but also like you keeping a job and getting your next job.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've heard it said so many times, like, I would rather work with someone who is a joy, who makes, who I can trust and who I know I get along with, but their art is like, okay, than someone who has incredible art, but is a jerk. I don't want to work with a jerk, period.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
that is like really fantastic advice. That's really, really good. What advice, like, let's say we're looking into the future right now, like Christmas Carol style. Let's look at like future Garnet, and she's like has a show, and she's like super cool, and I don't know, like has like, my goal is to have huge gigantic arm muscles because I draw all the time or something. Or I have this 600-page sketchbook that I'm filling up right now. It is literally like the length of my entire arm, and I've just been carrying it every day so I can like hopefully get okay. Anyway, so let's say we're looking into the future and we're looking at showrunner Garnet. What advice would you give her at that time, and what do you think she would tell you right now?
I think that if I could tell her anything, again, like, I'm assuming she knows a lot more than me. So,
hopefully you just regress.
Oh my God. I just get dumber and like more incompetent as we know. But if I could tell her anything, I would say, like, hey, do not forget where you started. Do not forget all the people who helped you. Do not forget that at one point you were the new person who didn't know anything, and it was terrifying. And you were like, please, I'm not stupid. I just don't know what's going on. Remember all the sacrifice that it took, not just on your part, but on the people who supported you. Remember the people who stuck their necks out for you. Remember the fact that your parents paid for your education out of pocket, which is not something they had to do. And especially as an artist, like, did you really have like any like surefire guarantee that you were going to get a job? Like, so for me, I think I would just constantly remind myself all the time, even no matter where I am, be humble, be humble, be humble, be humble, be humble. And remember, like, I don't want to sound cliche, but like, remember where you come from. Don't forget where you come from. But I think that truly, and again, bringing it back to like, immigrants work hard. Children of immigrants work very, very hard. And I'm like, do not let that go to waste. I mean, make sure you're doing with your love, like, don't ever, I would hate to think that I've like worked myself into a corner because I feel like I need to do this, as opposed to like working out of passion. But also, like, you worked for this. Hopefully you earned this. So, do the best that you can do. But again, be humble. And if she was going to give me advice, I feel, I'm trying to think of like all the times that I've looked back at myself and been like, what are you doing? I feel like she might do that too. She'd be like, what are you doing? But I think something she'd definitely say to me is like, stop being afraid. Stop overthinking things. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to try your best. And sometimes you'll try your best and you'll try your best and you will still fail. That's the reality, like, as much as wonderful as it is that we have all these movies and shows that are like, oh, if you try your absolute best, you'll always succeed. That's not the truth. You know, sometimes you're going to do your absolute best and you just won't make it. But again, I think she'd tell me like, stop focusing so much on, or like try to stop focusing so much on what you can't do or what you think you're not skilled, like you don't have the skills for, or what you haven't done, or like all these things in the future or whatever, and focus on what you can. You know, don't like I wish I could tell, you know, I could just stop the whole like paralysis via analysis thing. It's like, stop thinking about all the things you need to do and just do them. Just
I know, it's so
do
hard.
The drawing. Just do the drawing you said you wanted to. Just take the class. Just, or you know, even like in life, you know, you said you wanted to go to this place. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Stop procrastinating. I don't know if I'll listen to that one.
Maybe you'll listen to it tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Dead. No, but I think, you know, I think she'd definitely look back and say like, okay, listen, get your life together, in a sense of like, be more disciplined with the things that you need to be disciplined with, but also be nicer to yourself. Be nicer to yourself, and it's supposed to be fun, you know? It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be life is short. Life is a lot longer than we thought, but it's also pretty short. So make sure it counts. Make sure it counts, because at one point you'll be like 40 years old and you can't get that time back, you know?
Ooh, existential crisis. All right, let's go.
You know, I think that the existential crisis is a lot easier to manage if you are truly living every day like the best that you can. Like,
yeah, because you don't want to wake up when you're 40 and you're like, what? I missed it.
What have I been doing?
Yeah.
I missed it. You know, and again, like, that's not to say like that quote kind of like, I don't say it makes me mad, but like the one that says like, live every day like it's your last. I'm like,
oh my God, I was literally just talking to somebody about how much I hated that. Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that, because if this was truly my last, I would say bye.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to Bali. No one's gonna touch me. I don't care about none of y'all. Don't care about nothing. I'm taking all my money from the bank. See y'all, bye. Like, I don't want to do that. But you know,
yeah,
you know, you definitely want to try to live every day as best as you can. And the reason why I say as best as you can is because, again, as someone who struggles with depression, and it's like, some days are not going to be great. Some days it's like, the most I did today was brush my teeth.
Still good.
That's it. That's all I did. But you know what? That was my best. And that's all. And you know what? Hopefully tomorrow will be a little better. And if it's not, maybe the next day. But those days are going to come. And as long as the day doesn't feel like it's wasted, and you know what? If you did waste the day, don't dwell on it. Just make sure you don't waste tomorrow.
No, that's a quote. You could just stick that on.
If you did waste the day, listen, you can't get it back, but you better make sure you don't do it again, or you do it as least amount of times from here on out.
Yeah, for sure. And we're on to the last question. Woo,
Let's do it. Wrapping up.
What is something that you thought was scary, but you were able to overcome or get through?
Something that I thought was scary, but overcome. I think when you fail at something and then you try it again, that's scary. Because it's one thing to have a fear of failure if you've never tried it before, but it's another thing to have a fear of failure if you have tried it before. And it's like, we've been here, you know. And I remember I did martial arts for 18 years of my life, and I remember, you know, when we took tests to get to the next belt, we always had to break, you know, pieces of wood. And you know, you start off kind of light when you're like a white belt or a yellow belt, but when you get to like black belt or like different levels of being a black belt, you start to have to punch through like 4 1-inch boards. That's thick. That's scary. And something that my master always said was like, listen, you want to make it through the first time. Because if you don't and you hit it and it doesn't break, your entire body has now recognized this as like, ooh, we failed and that hurt, which means I don't want to try that again. I don't want to do that again. And now you have to fight your body. It's like, but we need to break the wood. And your brain is like, oh, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder. You know, it's already scary when you do it the first time, but then when you fail, it's like, gosh, now I have to go and fight my mind that doesn't want to do it in the first place. And so, you know, again, like for me, like I going back to what I answered earlier, like I failed to take care of myself because I took on too much and I wasn't caring for myself, and I wasn't paying attention to what I needed, and you know, my body was kind of like, all right, deuces. So when I had to put myself in a very similar position again, and it was actually, you know, this semester, spring semester is always very hard for me, you know, due to the things that I struggle with. And I was going into a spring semester where I was going to be a full-time student again for the first time in 3 years, because I was usually part-time so that I could, you know, manage everything that I needed to manage. But not only was it going to be full-time again, I was going to do an internship. And I was like, I'm looking at myself, I'm like, you are insane. The last time you've never done anything like this before, but the last time you did anything remotely this busy, you crashed. It was not good, you know. Like, and now you're gonna willingly do it and do even more, and that was terrifying. It was something that I had, you know, and not just like one of those things that are like, you know, right before, like as like from the summer prior, from last summer, thinking like, am I gonna be able to do this? You know, I'm someone who believes in God. It took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of talking to people. It took a lot of therapy. And the thing is that, you know, I can't say that it wasn't scary, but it definitely, I was like, you know what, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, I'm actually doing okay. Like I'm functioning. I'm doing well in all the things that I'm doing. And it's because I learned from that failure in the past. You know, I was taking on a lot more than I was doing before, but the difference between last time and this time is that I was smarter, I was wiser, I was way more careful. I was paying attention to myself. I was talking to people to keep me in check, which is something I was absolutely not doing before, you know, and all of those things that I had learned from the last time, all the things that I had, not just like, oh, I learned from my failures, but also like, you know, knowledge that I've gone and chased because I knew that I failed the last time. So it's like, okay, what absolutely did not work last time, but also how do people make it work? You know, what do the successful people do? Like, what is the thing that I should be doing? It's not just about running away from something. It's about running towards something. You know, you can't just run away from the mistakes of the past. You got to be moving towards success. And that for me, you know, being able to end the semester and be like, I made it. I didn't crash and burn, and I did well, and I feel good. Which is, I mean, listen, sometimes it's like, that's an accomplishment. How do you feel? I feel okay. Incredible. It's so much better than not feeling okay. You know? So for me, that was something that was scary, but wow. I did it, and I'm like, I was very proud of myself when I ended. I was like, I did that. I learned, and I'm better than I was before, and I did it.
Yay! That's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this has been fantastic. You're amazing. This is like so much fun.
No, thank you so much. This has been great. You're always a joy to speak to. And I'm so honored that, you know, you reached out and was like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I love watching other people do it.
Yeah.
But it's really you're incredible at like setting this up, the questions that you ask, and it's wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no problem. Do you have anything you want to promote, contact information where people can find your work, that sort of stuff?
Garnet Draws on Instagram.com.
Awesome. I'll link that in the description below.
I have a Twitter with the same name, but I don't really use it yet. I'm like, okay, one social media at a time.
Yeah.
Also,
no. It's too overwhelming to do more than one. Yeah.
But yeah, like same name on like Artful, Twitter, whatever else is out there. You can probably find me. But I know for the most part, I am on Instagram right now. So follow me if you want to talk more. If you want to, ask about my experience, feel free to DM me or email me. If it's like, a longer thing and can't fit in a text message, I'm always willing to talk more about my experience and like help other people, go on their journey with the knowledge that I've learned.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to say
Thank
bye
you
to
for
the
having me.
audience. Bye, audience.
Goodbye, audience. Goodbye.
Bye.